Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. Today I'm going to make German potato salad. And yes, there are a lot of different recipes for this, but this is one I've sort of developed over the years, and I'm going to share it with you. Now, here are the ingredients. You can pause and write them down. And while you're paused, please give us a like and subscribe. Just click on that bell up there, and then you'll get a notice whenever we post a video. Now, I have a little help here for the first part of this recipe, so I'm just going to let you listen, and then let's get cooking. When you get one clean, put it down in the sink, and then you get the next one. Yeah, you got to get that off. Yeah, it's got a little eye on it. I'll show you how to get that off. I'll get those off. You just get them good and plain.
Get off.
Scrubbing it good? Good job. Okay. Get the next one.
I get the big one.
Okay.
Oh.
That's my 4-year-old great-granddaughter, Athena. So, Athena and I got the potatoes into clean water, washed them. I don't peel these. I'm adding an onion, and I chop it pretty big because I'm going to take it out. It's just for flavor. And then a generous amount of salt. I'll put these on the stove, bring them to a boil, and cook them until they're tender. I use red potatoes. If you use other potatoes, you probably want to peel them. Now I have here my mother's old BSR skillet, and I just refinished it. And I'm going to finish that project by cooking some bacon. And I have a pound of bacon that I've cut in half just because it's easier to handle and cook it up. And I'm going to cook up that whole pound of bacon and reserve it, except for the 2 or 3 pieces that Athena insisted she needed. And if you time this right, your bacon and your potatoes will be done pretty close to the same time. If your potatoes get done first, just turn them off and let them sit in the hot water, because this is a dish we're going to serve warm. To check potatoes for doneness, you want to stick a knife in, and if it slips right off, it's done. Now I'm going to scoop off this little bit of onion before I drain the potatoes, and you're going to discard that. That was just to get the onion flavor throughout the potatoes. And then I'll drain them in a colander. No rinsing if there's any starch. And with red potatoes, there's not a lot of starch. But if there is any starch, you want to leave it in there. And I'll get the last of those little onion pieces off. Now, I'm going to just kind of roughly chop these potatoes. I don't want them in this big of chunks. So I'll just kind of go through. You can do this any way you want to. But I'll go through and cut them in half. And then some of them, the big ones, I'll cut in quarters. And you know, there are lots of ways to do this. Some people take them out and slice them. You can peel them if you'd rather. This is just how I like them. Now we're going to make the dressing. I have all the fat from a pound of bacon in this pan. I loosened the fond a little bit. And then this is 1 large red onion. This recipe uses 3 kinds of onions. And we're just going to cook these onions until they're nice and soft. Now this is going to be a sweet and sour dressing, which is one of the ways to make German potato salad. There are regional differences. Some parts use mayonnaise. So I'm just going to cook these until they're golden brown and very soft and tasty. And you know, nothing better than fried onions. And onions fried in bacon fat. Oh my. So I'm going to cook them until they're kind of golden. Looking good, smelling good. And then we're going to turn this into a dressing. Now you add just a little bit of oil. I'm using olive oil, and that sort of helps keep the fat from congealing so fast, because that would not be tasty. So just a couple tablespoons full of olive oil added here. And I wouldn't use olive oil at the beginning. I add it at the end because it kind of breaks down. So I'll stir that in. And then we're going to add the vinegar. Now, the original recipe calls for apple cider vinegar. I prefer red wine vinegar in most things if I'm cooking. So that was about 6 ounces of red wine vinegar. And I'm going to add a couple tablespoons full of Dijon mustard. You can use mustard of your choice, but I like to use Dijon mustard in this. Just a little bit different flavor than regular mustard. And we're going to stir that around. And you know, basically what we've got here is an oil and vinegar dressing. So I'm going to give this a taste, and I'm tasting for a couple things. The first thing is salt. I used a low sodium bacon, and I salted my potatoes, and I tasted those to make sure that they were salty enough. And I'm going to need to add a little more salt to this. Potatoes need salt. Without salt, they don't have much flavor. So I'm adding a tiny bit of salt, and I'm using red pepper flakes, which I like, but you can use black pepper. And then we'll talk about the sweet part. We had a discussion on our Facebook group, Cooking from Scratch on Debbie's Back Porch. Not everybody adds sugar. I'm adding a heaping tablespoonful of brown sugar to this. I'm using a sugar substitute. You don't have to. But I've tried it both ways now, and I really like it with just a little bit of sugar added to it. And I guess it's more truly a sweet and sour dish if you add a little bit of sugar to it. And I like the flavor of the brown sugar with the bacon and the vinegar. The brown sugar is good. So I'm going to give this another taste, and then I think it's ready for us to put our final dish together. Now you want to do this step right before you serve it. So your potatoes may have cooled off, but this hot dressing is going to heat them up, and just dump it all in. And those proportions should work pretty well. I like a lot of moisture in sauce, and this recipe will work for up to 5 pounds of potatoes. And I'm going to mix it around really well. And you know, if this breaks up a few of the potatoes, that's just fine. And they'll break pretty easily. And then I'm going to crunch all this bacon up. This is how I do it. I put it in a paper towel, let it drain really, really well, and then I just crunch it in the paper towel, and it gets it into nice sized chunks. This is a lot of bacon, a whole pound, except for the 2 slices I gave to Athena. A half a pound would probably be enough, but you know, if you're going bacon, you might as well go bacon. So we're going to put that all down into the mixture and stir it in. And then I'm going to add the third type of onion. We're going to use yellow and red and green. And I've chopped up green onions, a whole bunch of green onions. I don't mean a whole lot of green onions. I mean a bunch from the grocery store. It gives you about a cup. And I'm putting most of them in. I'm going to save a few to sprinkle over the top at the very end. And I'll just incorporate those in. And then I'm going to add some parsley. Just a rough cut on the parsley. And it does add flavor, but it's mostly for the looks. I think this is a stunning looking dish. The greens and the reds together look really good when you put it on the table. And then I'll do a last taste for salt. Let me give you a close-up of that. All the greens and the reds, they just add a little pop to your presentation, to your table. And this is so good. Let me get a spoon and taste for salt and pepper. So I'm going to give this a little taste here. And I'll probably have to add a little bit of salt. But let's talk about salt, because folks try to cut down on their sodium. If you add salt as you go, taste and add salt when it's needed, then folks won't salt at the table. I've heard many chefs say you shouldn't need a salt shaker at the table. You should salt it as you go. And then ultimately folks will use less salt if you do it that way. The food will have that full flavor when you put it on the table. Let's plate this up. I'm just going to let you look at it for a second. Isn't that pretty? You know, this is a really full flavored potato salad. And it's not anything like the southern potato salad that I usually make. This is really sweet and sour and very full bodied. So I'm going to take a minute here to get just a little bit of all the little tidbits, little bacon, a little onion. And it's just so good. You know, it goes perfectly with schnitzel. Schnitzel, red cabbage. They go together really well, and that's kind of a traditional German meal. Thank you for joining me today, and hey, please subscribe. I post new videos a couple times a week, and I want you to get a notice. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. I hope you try this. You'll like it. And I hope you join us again tomorrow.